Hello, I'm your host, Skeptical Scott.
And I am this week's co-host, Artie Fisher.
Welcome to Funny You Say That. If you've ever rethought what you were taught and said, I don't know about that, then this show's for you. Part history, part diary, some music, and certainly a comedy of errors. Please join us as we drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, and believe in as many true things as possible.
Scott, what is the title of today's episode?
The Purpose-Driven Strife, a.k.a. what's the show going to be about? So, let me start with Purpose-Driven. That was a callback to a book written by a guy named Rick Warren. He was a Christian pastor. It was a best-selling book, and I should know. I bought it, and I started the 40-day spiritual journey journal, which each chapter was intended to, I would read a little Bible verse and his thoughts, Rick Warren's thoughts, and that should help me to understand God's plan, his purpose for me. And how about that word strife? Well, I remember even back, something like 2003 or 2004, something like that, when the book was written. I was trying to get to the, why is this such a popular book? I knew I was struggling to find my purpose with a capital P. And maybe this God with a capital G, maybe he can help. Maybe that's why it's a best-selling book. We're all looking for purpose, right? But that word strife, the dictionary defines strife as a lack of agreement or harmony. As I was making my way through that purpose-driven life journal, I was already experiencing some doubt. Like there was a lack of agreement that this exercise was not really to decipher God's purpose for me, but was ultimately one man's purchase of one man's journal for one man to find the one big meaning in his one life. And I didn't make it to day 40 of that journal, though I did continue to journal, just not there. I think I made it somewhere in the mid-20s.
Hey, Skeptical Scott, it's funny you say that.
Thanks for keeping me focused, Artie. All right, so let me break down what you heard in our intro, because that really lays out what we're trying to do with this show. The purpose of the show can be broken into 3 parts.
Part history.
All right, this would be looking back into ancient texts like the Bible and other books and some historical events. And this could also be looking at our own personal history, an analysis of things we've heard or read that make us collectively scratch our head. I'm definitely going to share with you some of what I've heard.
Part diary.
What are some things happening right now that we should probably all question more? I once heard it said that brains are meaning-making machines, and I agree with that. I've noticed that the interpretations, though, of that meaning, I guess, are not always based in reality, but maybe a fiction that people are writing in their head or hearing from others. So I think it's important that we look again at what's happening and reinterpret.
Part comedy.
Hey, have you ever bitten into some food and thought, that tastes funny? Funny can mean off, which that's pretty important if you're eating some spoiled food or something. But dang it, funny can also mean laughter. And so I hope that you get to laugh during some of these episodes, because laughter is dang good medicine. So get ready for some storytelling, music, and theater.
Drop the supernatural. Embrace the rational.
As I grew up in this conservative area here in the United States, and I visited many churches for decades, I was asked to accept some pretty impossible things as true. But now I want to believe as many true things as possible. So here are some of the illogical or supernatural things that I was taught to believe. Were you?
God breathed into dirt to make a man. God then ripped out man's rib to grow a woman. Mary found herself pregnant as a virgin. There was a giant boat with 2 of all the earth's animals because of a global flood. Jesus came back from the dead. You and I will have an afterlife. And much, much more.
So future episodes are going to always feature some certain claim that I've heard or you've heard and that I've said and you've said and maybe I've even taught. I sang about it. So that brings us to the title of our show. When have you heard someone say,
"Funny you say that,"
or the longer,
"It is funny you would say that," or "It is funny you should say that"?
It's usually a way to share some sort of coincidence, like, so someone comes up and to you and you say, "Hey, guess what? I got 2 dogs." And then that person replies, "Wow, it's funny you say that. I have 2 dogs." So my hope as you listen to these episodes, it's not just to challenge you or your upbringing, but to also relate. I bet when I disclose some of the thoughts I've had over the years, you're going to say, "Hey, funny you say that." Because perhaps we both thought the same thing, but just never said it to anybody. In fact, the more I've actually shared these thoughts, the more I've heard people say, "Oh man, I'm not the only one that thought that." So perhaps you're going to realize you're not alone in your skeptical way of thinking. And so I hope then that many of you will realize you are not alone. You are not alone. All right. Anyway, moving. Hey, and what is skeptical? Like, what's skeptical thinking? Some synonyms, curious or logical or rational. I don't see skeptics and cynics as the same. Skepticism is open-minded, and that allows you to believe some things and doubt others, or again, just not make up your mind quite yet until you see more evidence. Cynics, on the other hand, a lot of times they are closed. They've made up their mind, and they may have even withdrawn into a pessimistic outlook. Like a grumpy pants. I think it's possible to be a skeptic and optimistic person at the same time. At least I hope so. I consider myself to be a positive person, open to finding the best way of doing things for the best outcomes. But I have to admit, I'm pretty sure that in my storytelling, I will likely step on the toes of some people. I will likely make fun or mock certain aspects of religion, whether intentional or not. A disclaimer then. I'm likely questioning or mocking the idea, not the person. I can respect people. I can even respect someone's right to believe how they want. But I don't have to respect the belief itself. I guess we will see how I surf those waves in future episodes. Each show, I will also feature other skeptics. Those could be authors or people from history or current people or even people on TikTok. In fact, let's do one right now.
I think it's real important to question what you know before you leave the podcast. It's the skeptic of the show.
Fables should be taught as fables, myths as myths, and miracles as poetic fantasies. To teach superstitions as truths is a most terrible thing. The child's mind accepts and believes them, and only through great pain and perhaps tragedy can he be in after years relieved of them.
Surely that's some modern free-thinking atheist or on YouTube, some dude, right? No, this quote came from Hypatia. Yeah, that's correct. Hypatia, that's Hypatia, Hypatia of Alexandria, from around the turn of the 4th century. She was, in her time, the world's leading mathematician and astronomer. How about that? She was seen as a pagan during a time of bitter religious conflict between Christians and Jews. So here it is, some 1,600 years later, and are we not currently in a time of bitter religious conflict? I'm thinking of like this Christian nationalism that we're seeing rise up here, and I guess that leads me to one of the final purposes of this show, and I think it's this, that the consequences of irrational or illogical supernatural thinking can have devastating impacts on the lives of people you and I know. I want people to believe in as many true things as possible, especially before they go vote? My hope then is we should not just accept claims at face value, not without asking the question, why? May we always be open to more evidence, and let's challenge our thinking.
Look up to the sky, truth is what we find, not in holy books, but in open minds. Reason, oh reason, you light up our way. Critical thinking.
Thanks for listening to Funny You Say That. One of our anonymous listeners created the intro music. Thanks, man. All other music was created by our co-host Artie and her cousin Suno.
Do you have a question, a comment, or a request? Send us a text in the show's description. You can also find Skeptical Scott on Facebook or TikTok.
Drop the supernatural, embrace the rational, believe in as many true things as possible.
Otherwise, you may end up believing something even more artificial than me.
Not in faith we trust,
A toast. May skeptical thoughts be with you.
And also with you.
See you next time.